Welcome, Yashmee Dewoo, to our show. It's really great to have you with us. You know, it kind of feels like a regular Saturday morning, but with cameras. So, because we know each other personally, Yashmee, you were one of the first people that I ever met in Mauritius that I clung to as my own friend. And I know that I met you because of Rishi. You guys knew each other in high school, but you were one of the first mum friends that I ever had here. You've not only got a wealth of knowledge as a mum, but you're also in the HR space. Could you tell our audience about your journey in HR? You're a HR director at Accenture, Mauritius and Vietnam, which employs over 4,000 people. Tell us about your journey.
Okay, thank you. Thank you guys for having me. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. And as you said, it feels like a coffee morning, but we'll try to keep it a little bit more professional. And hopefully the advice that I have to give today is going to be helpful, to people. I guess growing up, I was always drawn to being around people. I was a chatty child growing up, and everybody knew me for being very bubbly. So growing up, I always thought that I would do a job that would involve people. And unfortunately, I think in the secondary years, like in Mauritius, in a government school, you don't get much career counseling. So talking to a few teachers and relatives, and everyone was like, well, if you want to do something with people, psychology might be the way. It's a broad degree, maybe start with that and then you see how you go. So I landed in Melbourne, started doing psychology as part of an arts degree, because I didn't, quite sure, I wasn't quite sure whether I was going to major in it, what I was going to do. And it's not only perhaps the second year, at being at university, that I realized that first, I wasn't going to be a qualified psychologist, because if I were to take that path, it was going to take me at least 10 years of study in Australia, because you actually have to get a doctorate in psychology to become a registered psychologist. And I thought, I'm not ready to give up so many years, perhaps, of my life. And chatting to my university professors, etc., I came with the option of perhaps doing more on the industrial side of psychology, and then finishing up with a master's in human resources. And I think that gave me really a breakthrough into what I wanted to do. I did my graduate program at Ford, motor company, obviously a world of man and cars and all the noise that goes with it. And I started to feel that I could make a difference. And a series of jobs followed after that with Foster's, KPMG, and a few banks where I was working part-time while I was at university. And then came the big change. My husband wanted to move back to Mauritius. We had one child at that time, so Ariane was a baby. And he said, look, I want to go back home. I want to see how things go. And I was dead scared, because I thought, I'll come back to Mauritius. God knows if I'm going to be able to find a job. So I took an extended maternity leave from Australia and came back and thought, it's not going to happen. And then through a few friends, starting to look around, and then landed up, in Accenture. And at that time, I was only responsible for about 600 people. So the Accenture technology, side of things. And that was my first job, in Mauritius. So you can imagine, you come back. I was then a mom to 2 children when I came back. I didn't know where to start. And it was a totally alien world, just to be among people that I didn't know, I didn't quite know how to react. The policies, everything was different. I didn't know Mauritian law that much as well. So I did feel a bit lost in the beginning. But I think it's the organization, so the firm itself, that helped me find my feet, because there was so much support available. First of all, as a mother, people understood that some days I just had to pack my bags at 5 and go home, because I needed to be with my kids. And also the support system. So I think what the firm gave me, then I started to give back. And then, one thing led to another, and I found myself as being, the country lead for human resources at the firm, and it's been brilliant so far. And 2 years ago, we acquired a small organization that was based in Vietnam. So we now have an extension of Accenture in Vietnam. So it's a new challenge, and I'm just working through it. So yeah, so in a nutshell, that's how I ended up in Accenture.
Awesome. And now you're leading 4,000 plus 250 or something in Vietnam people. That's just amazing. But I've known you since we were 15 or so. And I think when you say you're a people person, I totally get that. And I think it's great that you've been able to use, that side of you, being people person, to make it a career. But in fact, the whole theme of our podcast is happiness at work, because we feel that if people are happy at work, it will reflect positively on, happiness at home, happiness with the kids, happiness as parents. What do you think of happiness at work? How do you define happiness at work, being the head of HR in Accenture?
I think one of the basic things that I do tell employees is that you need to wake up on a Monday morning and have no Monday-itis. Like, you have to be able to wake up on a Monday morning and say, yes, I want to go back to work, because what I'm giving to the firm is giving back to me. And I feel content, and I found my place. And you have several a type of structures that are put into place so that you can find yourself whilst being at work. And for me, you cannot unlink happiness and engagement. It has to be together. If you're engaged as an employee and you're positively engaged as an employee, it will reflect in the happiness that you have and what you bring back, back home when you go home as well. And we've put a lot of measures into place, into the workplace, from the basic questions of asking, what do you want us to do for you? What is important for you as an employee? And with the various generations, we get different answers back. But basically, it's a place where people feel safe, where they can come as themselves, so they bring their own self to work. We put a lot of emphasis on inclusion and diversity. So whoever you are, wherever race, religion, culture that you come from, you're welcome, and we don't judge. We have a flexible work arrangement, so which allows people to be able to juggle home and their work responsibilities. And when they feel that they are happy with what we are offering, and that it works within hours, and that they are getting something back, money aside, because compensation is different and benefits is different, but what they're gaining, the intangible that we kind of put a price on, that they feel that we're doing for them, I think that's what brings happiness to our employees.
So that's to them, to
Yes.
the employees.
Yeah.
What about for you? You're still, at the end of the day, working. You're an employee of Accenture, even if you're head.
Yeah.
What does happiness look like for you? What makes you happy to be at work?
I think it's, again, finishing a day's work and feeling satisfied. I still go into work and I still have my checklist. Everybody knows that I have my notebook and I write things down. And to be able to tick off things from my list at the end of the day and know that I've brought in a positive contribution to whichever issue that I've had during the day. And it might seem all fancy and really happy being in a HR role, but there is the downsides to it. Sometimes you need to have very difficult conversations with employees. There are the exits, there are the happy exits, there are the unhappy exits of employees, terminations that you don't predict are going to happen. So sometimes you are in tears inside, but you can't show that to that person that whilst you're having that conversation with them. And at the end of the day, I always say that I need to hug a tree so that I get my vibes back. But I still leave my workplace every day and feel that I'm content, and that I'm giving as much as I'm receiving. And I think I've said that a few times, also the day where it doesn't make sense to me at all, that I don't find my place, that I'm just going to work for the sake of going to work, I know that I will have to stop. and I will have that reflection, and I will know that I'm not in a happy place anymore. So being surrounded, knowing that I do have that positive contribution still, that people look up to me, that people feel that they can come to me when they have, you know, problems or issues, and also like the firm beliefs like in the strategy that we are bringing through like locally, and we're making it happen. And so for me, that really like defines like being happy at work.
But Yashmee, you are not always the head. And a lot of people might say, you know, one day when I become you, when I become the head, I will do what you're doing and I will be happy. You know, I will make a difference in other people's lives. I will have the ability to make decisions that will be impacting the world, etc. But I'm not there yet. But you are not always the head.
No.
Were you still happy even if you were not the head?
I think it depends a lot on yourself. You can't expect, like wherever you're working, you can't expect the organization to be giving you everything. You're walking in and have expectations that, you know, that you're entitled like to everything and that it needs to be given to you. It's a give and take situation. What you bring as your strengths, what you bring as your knowledge, what you bring as your background, equally there will be that sharing, and then you will find your place. So yes, you don't need to be at the top like to be happy. You have to be really content with saying that whatever small contribution that I'm putting through, I'm still like, you know, making things happen. There is an anecdote, I don't know if you've read about it, but a lot of people like use that in various like, you know, conversation about engagement at work. There is this person who walks into the NASA right before, like, you know, the first man is about like to go on the moon, and he's brooming, and somebody's talking to him and say, hey, how are you going, etc., and how are you liking your job, like as what you're doing right now. He goes, yeah, I'm really happy because I'm helping to put a man on the moon. So he's basically brooming the floor, but how he sees his role and the value of what he's bringing to that, I think is a lesson to be learned, that
Absolutely.
Other people need to understand that every single small contribution that you bring in is part of making the organization and then ultimately you a happy person.
That's beautiful. Like he's part of that team that put the man on the moon.
Absolutely.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for him, the man wouldn't have gone to the moon. I mean, that's pretty amazing.
And you'll still have that, you know, that unconscious bias that, you know, he's a janitor, he's probably not like, you know, his role is not linked like to being a super scientist or an astronaut, but the way that he perceives his role, the value that he puts on there. So I think this is what matters. You have to know how you value yourself first to be able to find that happiness. Yeah.
That's great.
You mentioned about many of the things that Accenture do, like as for you yourself as an employee, what they've given back to you after you've put out, they've given back to you. Have you got any success stories that you could share where Accenture's efforts in giving employees a sense of happiness, where that has paid off in terms of business success, because that's important too?
Yeah, absolutely. And we always say that, like, you know, sometimes we get a lot of people who are unhappy saying, oh, you know, we're not being paid enough, we don't have the same benefits as other organizations. And for me, the question is very simple. We're running a business here. End of the day, it is a business. There's a profit to be made, and there is only so much that we're going to be able to do for you. But coming back to how, like, you know, what we've put in place has brought success is looking at girls who come out of university. So the female population that have a tertiary like education, they come out of university, so most, like, you know, the demographics will be around 23, 24, like, you know, when they've worked like a couple of years. And then you see, like, by the age perhaps between 25 and 28, when they've done perhaps 5 years at work, so they are just about to get into middle management. And that's the age probably in the past few years, although that's like increasing now, where most girls get married. And then they have the responsibilities of being able, of then having a home, of perhaps having children. And when I started with Accenture, we saw the decline during that, that period of time where they'd get married and then go be a mother, or choose to say, no, I can't put focus on my career anymore because I've got something else to do. So we had a huge work and task to be able to resolve that, to be able to say that you can do both, to be able to be happy, that you are able to have a family life and being able to work from in the office. So then there was the introduction of specific trainings for them, to guide them, to make them understand how they could time manage properly, and also introduction of flexible work arrangements where they could be at home and at work at the same time, so that then they could juggle everything. So we've seen from introducing that slowly, that now the female population has a different perspective on what work-life balance means. And we've not limited it to the female population, because then it's we're discriminating against the men. So last year we introduced paternity leave for our dads, and before by law it's a couple of days and then you have to be you have to go back to work, whereas we see the dad as being an equal partner, where you have to be able to share with your wife the load of what you're doing. So paternity leave has increased now, and the dads are able to spend a couple of weeks with their firstborn, or with second children or after, and they don't need to take it right away after the birth. So they have a full year during the course of the first year to be able to take the time off whenever is needed. So you see then that there is that change of mindset, that work is not a blocking factor anymore. On the other hand, it enhances you, it motivates you, and gives you that empowerment to be able to do both. You become a parent, you choose to travel, you choose to adopt, all various forms of different things that you can do, and then you still are able to work. So at the end of the day, now we see that it's stabilized. So whenever they reach that age where they are going to get married, they know that there is a support system behind that's then going to help them to be able to do better. So all the measures, you don't see perhaps the success straight away. You need to be patient. You need to see how it spans out over a couple of years. But the patience is paid off, and now we see that it works.
What about those corporate events, that I see that you put on? For example, great end of year parties, you have even bingo nights, you have different things that you put on. What would you say is the reason for doing that? Is it team building? Is it I don't know, is it to enhance the happiness of the team?
There's a bit of both, when you start working, you have to realize that you spend most of your hours of your day in the workplace, whether you're working from home or you're in the office. The majority of hours of your waking hours is with your colleagues, so they become more than just the people that you work with. They are friends. You start sharing stories, so you need to be able to continue on that and say, well, you're not going to be able to stop work during the day and play bingo, so you need to be able to have a time where they can actually do that. So all of this is to really enhance the engagement, to show people that you care, to get them to really understand that yes, we do work hard, but at the same time there is a time for you guys to relax and get to spend more time with your colleagues outside of the work hours. And over the years we've also had to change what we offer to employees. What made them happy a couple of years ago now has changed, because now we've got a new generation of workers. So their asks are very different to what perhaps our generation wanted. I remember me being a graduate, we'd probably have some recognition points at the end of the year, get a voucher to go and buy something, and that would mean a lot. I would be happy with only that. Today, this is not sufficient. You need to do like more and more to keep like employees engaged. So we've had to come up like with really young like and brilliant, like innovative like ideas, so that they feel that we're constantly doing something for them. And we always talk about change, and we talk about change positively. This is our tagline, like, you know, let there be change, and embrace the change when it happens. So now that we have the younger generation, we have to change for them. We have to change with them, so that they see that we are, you know, we have a mutual understanding, like, to make things happen. So the big corporate events, yes, in a way, yeah, this is what they want, like from time to time. But on the other hand, they also want those little get-togethers where they can sit and chat, like, you know, and have like a casual like night out. So yeah, so now we just got to keep on going with those.
And I understand that, you know, you want to keep those people happy.
Yeah.
But there's a cost to it.
Absolutely.
And even those little get-togethers that you're talking about, you know, if you have to add them up for the 4,000 plus employees that you have, there is a cost.
Yes.
I mean, you mentioned a few moments ago that this is still a business at the end of the day. So it still needs to produce income, and you can't just spend all that income on staff just to keep them happy. Where's the balance? Where's the optimal point?
Yes, well, I think they do understand that, you know, we have 4 quarters in our financial year, and there will be quarters where we'll be like, well, this is a no spending quarter. And they are a bit used to it, because they know that, you know, okay, 1 quarter we can't spend, but then the next quarter there will be something. And I think it's really now ingrained in their mindset. They know that this is how the firm works, that we'll give as much as we can. And, you know, when it is a no, it is a no, unfortunately, because we need to keep the business like alive. And it's very difficult, because that's when you see perhaps a bit of attrition like happening, because what you stop offering, there will be a different place that's actually offering that. And for them, it's the gain like in the short span of time. It's not thinking, well, what's like, you know, long-term career. Like many times you'll find that the younger generation, they'll be like, no, like, you know, I'm going to get a couple of thousand rupees more like per month in terms of salary. As soon as we start there, like, you know, there is, I don't know, fun Fridays that you guys don't do, or different things, and they're attracted to that, and they will leave for those reasons. So you always have to, you know, manage them and make them understand. And a lot goes into the communication of explaining that at the end of the day, this is a business, and you've got to like meet us halfway. Yeah. So, but very, very difficult. We're always finding ways. We're not there yet, but that's the constant challenge that we have.
And surely you have to fight a lot with your finance
team.
We
do, and it's always it is them who's not allowing us to do it, or it's the total compensation team, like the poor guys, like, you know, they're always the hated ones, but they do what they can as well. And when you have so many employees, you need to adhere to a set of policies and structure. Otherwise, you're all over the place, and there's no control. So I think this is what it takes, you know, as much as you give is how much you're going to get back.
And do you find that people understand it?
Some do, and you always have that little bunch who's always going to be unhappy, like no matter what you do. You go to a large corporate event, they'll be like, oh, why do we have the little one? You do a little one, and they'll be like, oh, we used to go to hotels and have massive ones, you know. In winter, we said, look, we're going to give umbrellas to people because it's rainy season and people are going to use it. Oh, I don't like the color, you know. Yeah. So there's always going to be that little bunch that is unhappy. And for me, it's to let them be. I used to be quite bothered by it when I first came out to Mauritius, because I was like, we're doing all of this for you, like be grateful, you know. And I learned with time that you can't please everyone, that you're always going to have that little bunch that is going to be unhappy, and that you need to give them their time to find that content place that I was talking about. For different people, it happens at different stages like of their lives. And I've had employees who have left, like in the 9 years that I've been with Accenture, who have left and then have come back and then have told me, well, now we realize like how good we have it here, because you take it for granted like when you have it. So yeah, so you're always going to have, you know, your unhappy chaps, but
the grass is not always greener elsewhere, is it?
Totally.
Like we've had a lot of well, not a lot, but we've had some staff as well that have gone and then they've come back. And, you know, if they've left on good terms, it's always nice to have them back because, you know, they're coming back home almost.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think it is good for people to get an experience outside the company just so that they don't take it for granted, so that they can go, yeah, like as and when things come up that are not as rosy as it looks in another company, because everyone's doing social media and whatever. So yeah, it is good to be able to go, yeah, but it's still great where I go. Like pretty much most of the time it's great here. So yeah, I'm gonna stay.
And you'll find that they appreciate it more when they come back. They come with a different mindset because they already know what they're getting themselves like into. And if you welcome them back, they feel that, you know, you've always valued them. So I think that's the important part that, you know, sometimes we forget as well, because we do value the employees who are here, because there's no business without the people. So I think this is one of the most important things, like to show them that they are valued.
Do you feel like there are certain people who, no matter what good times you show them or however much the community in the workplace is awesome, that some people just want money and that's what's going to make them happy? Or?
I think it's an age thing. This is what I've seen,
the
like,
generation.
in the and perhaps like in our generation, it was quite common, like if you're not going overseas, that you would live with your parents. That although, you know, you'll build a house at the top of the house, like, you know, where your parents were, or you'd be happy to co-share. With time, you see a lot of the younger generation having their own places where they go, where they want to have that privacy and that they want to invest in a house like quite young, or they're buying their cars like quite young. And for them, money matters. So I'm out of university, I've done a couple of years, like, you know, with one firm. And if I go, like, you know, somewhere else, like straight away, even if it is just for the money for a couple of years, I'm going to focus on that, you know, on gaining much. It's not about the experience at that point in time. It's really about saying, well, at this point in time, I really need the money. When they need the experience again, then they will come back because they realize that, you know, Accenture is this big firm where I can get all the training, all the coaching, like everything that I need. But perhaps like earlier on, like when they are at that graduate stage, that's when they will jump around because it is about the money, like more than anything else. And then again, you have that group of people that are really like focused just on that. So for them, it's compensation or nothing. So whatever benefits that you may have like on the side, they do not put like, you know, a value on that. And then compensation can mean like, you know, I need a mobile phone straight away. And we're not talking like the basic, like, you know, I need the latest one that's come out. I need to have the latest laptop. And if you're not going to give me that, well, I'm going to go somewhere else. So it's all in the mindset, like really. But yes, you do have that type of people that are just about the money and nothing else. Yeah.
So when you say just about the money, I mean, again, like you said, it is still a business at the end of the day, but you are HR, you have a personality, and you are human. And so isn't there a balance to be made between being human and also serving the business? Because I mean, if you had to be completely business, you would never hire women, right? Because you would still need to pay them for 3.5 months while they're on maternity leave. Instead, you would just, you know, hire men. And you mentioned only 2 weeks of paternity leave. That's a big difference. Where do you draw the line?
You need to find that human at the base of it. You need to understand that you're dealing with people and that there are emotions like involved, and that a lot happens on communication and conversation, and that you need to make the business like leaders like realize that they are people themselves, and finding that right, like, you know, balance with giving to your employees is what's going to make the business like, you know, successful. So of course, like, we are constantly fighting, like, you know, like a basic example would be like sometimes, like, you know, you have very tired employees who come to us and say they've been doing overtime and, you know, they're really tired and they can't do it like anymore. And then the business will be like, well, you know, we don't have any other choice, like, you know, we have go lives happening, like the client wants this and we need to make it happen. But then you would come like with a solution that says, well, you could probably have 2 people that do the overtime and share it over the course of the week. Then one person can have, you the rest, and then or you have a shift system where you have some people doing it and then they don't need to do it the other week, or it's about working weekends, like juggle in between your team that all of them are not working weekends at the same time. And we've got to remember the culture in Mauritius. People have different religious backgrounds, so at different times of the year, each and every one will have different demands, whether it's like, walking to Grand Bassin or doing Ramadan. And you will always have different demands that come from employees, and the business needs to adapt to that. But it's again, being able to give to the employees as much as they give back to you, and making the business understand that, we need to be truly human at the basis of it. And in fact, we went just prior, to having the big change within Accenture. We did a fundamental training about truly human, and making the business understand that, that it's all about the body, the soul, and the mind, and that you need to have all this in the right place to be able to deliver at best. You need to have a healthy mental health to be able to deliver at your best. You need to feel that in your soul you belong, in a place, and that you have a sense of purpose. That's where you're going to be able to deliver at your best. And there was that change, that happened at that time when we carried out, and it was a global training and quite immersive. So a lot of people, they had to be in there to understand. And I think that now, perhaps the confinement helped with that as well, and to see the world differently, and value the human at the end of it. So it is always tricky. It is always a challenge. You're always going to have to be in fights, if I may call it so, with the business. But more and more you see that there is the value on the human again.
And I think that a lot of people actually are grateful that their company is providing, those things for them, like let's say maternity cover, and even when they come back to work, maybe they have a little bit of downtime to be able to even go breastfeed their children and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I think I've seen a lot of people that actually take it so well that they double up their efforts towards the company after they've come back.
Yes, and again, it comes back to the intangible, because this you can't put a price on. You're offering that time off to be able to be with a baby. For example, in your school structure, all your kids will be at school before 9, and you have a teacher who says, well, I need to come an hour later, once a week or twice a week. You'll be flexible around that, because you have a bunch of teachers that can, cover for that. And when it is somebody else's time, whether it's a dad that needs to drop off their kids, and he's a teacher as well, and coming to work a little bit later, I think it's just a matter of being able to structure the work in a flexible manner, so that at the end of the day everybody gains from it.
I think when there is a genuine cause or a genuine reason to help, I think people would generally tend to be human, even if they are, employers or bosses or managers.
Yes.
I remember there's, in fact, not so long ago, one of our maids actually came to see me and said, my husband is going through something and medical, and she was so distraught, and you could see she's so genuine. And she was like, I want to get maybe 1 month of unpaid leave. And it touched me so much, and I knew that it was a genuine case. And I said, well, actually, take the whole month. We will manage around it, because it was also during the holiday period. And I said, we'll pay you. We'll keep your salary going for the 1 month, because she needs it anyway. Yeah. And so she was like, well, I can do that. And then when she came back, she was so grateful, even if the situation is still very much the same at home. But, that sort of gave her a feeling of I'm valued, I'm important, they care about me. And she's back and she's doing a great job.
I think it really boils down to having that right balance. You cannot be happy unless you find that right balance, unless you find your place in a structure, no matter how big it is, whether it's a small organization of less than 20 people, or you are multinational of over 4,000, it's about finding your place in there.
I recently saw a video meme type thing from the point of view of salary increases. And in the video, there was one escalator going up, and all these people up, and at the top of it says, changing jobs every 6 months. And then on the other one that's the walkways coming down, there's like one guy who's literally like just the treadmill type thing, staying at the bottom. And on his escalator, it says staying in the same job for 5 years.
Yeah.
Do you feel that this kind of attitude of changing jobs every 6 months does actually play out in favor of those people who do it, or is there a risk to that? Like, does it actually harm them in the long term? Because for me as an employer, if I see someone, if I'm interviewing someone with a CV where they have jumped around to different jobs, that's a big red flag for me. I don't typically hire people who don't have a history of staying at a job for a number of years, or if they have moved because of, you know, something specific, I will ask them about it. But maybe because of my Gen X type, the way I've been raised and trained in my country in Australia, I see that as a negative. Could you talk to us about
I think I tend to be aligned with you, and it is a generation-like thing, and that for us, the basic of finding a job and being loyal was always super important. In fact, like if you see, like even when I came back to Mauritius, I started working with Accenture and I'm still there. So you get that sense of like responsibility, of belonging, of purpose. And for us, this matters. But the younger generation, no, like they're testing the grounds, like they're going from one job to another to see. For them, they think this is happiness. You know, I'm going to jump like from one to the other until such a place where everything is perfect. But it is not going to be perfect. And again, coming to your point, having that expectation that the firm needs to do everything to make you happy, it's not going to happen. So yes, for me, it is a red flag. Like if I see people like jumping from one job to another, except if they can clearly explain to me what they've done. Like some people take gap years and they're traveling and they're doing mini jobs around the world. Okay, that's value added to what you're doing. But if you're only doing it because you cannot make up your mind, then of course I'm going to be scared to hire you, because I don't know how long you're going to stay with me, like, you know, in the long term. And I think 1-2 years is okay, because sometimes like you need to find your feet, and you might have done like 2 small jobs before you find the right one. But yeah, I'm not for the jumping up around, and I still believe that when you start a job, you need to give yourself the time to be able to adapt, one, for yourself, and secondly, like to be able to understand what the firm is about, and being able to be a value add before you decide that, you know, you're going to leave and do something else.
You have been in this role for many years now, and it sounds like Accenture is doing amazing things already, giving so much to their employees. But could you perhaps tell us any funny requests that you have? Because I'm sure there's some.
Look, we totally have, and some of them we have like implemented. I say that, and I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of hatred for it. I'm not a pet person, like at all. And I know lots of people that, you know, their pets, it's their family, it's part of their family. And a couple of years ago, we introduced the pet insurance. So you can now pay, like, you know, for your pet, like, because it's so costly, and I didn't realize that it was like, you know, so costly, and now they can deduct that out of their salaries, and it made so many people like so happy. I still don't understand it, but I know that, you know, for people who love their pets, for them it's amazing, and we see more and more people, like, you know, joining like the club, like to be able to do that. But then we've had, you know, random ones as could we, like, you know, get a shuttle bus, like, you know, from work, like, you know, to go to Bagatelle, like at lunchtime. So just, you know, random things that they come up with. And we used to have a suggestion box, like where people could drop in like with things that that they wanted, and all sorts of, like, you know, funny demands. We do have very funny days. Let's put it that way.
When you talked about pets, I thought you were going to say bring your pets to work day.
Do you know that they actually do that as well? Absolutely. So in different offices of Accenture around the world, it's like bring your kids day. So they have a day where you can bring your pets at work, and they have special meeting rooms that are totally pets friendly, and you can actually bring your pets into the office.
Let the pets socialize.
And who knows? Yeah. So it is an evolving workplace. Yeah.
And how do you respond to those ones that could be a little crazy, and
It is, and again, you need to bring it to the structure, to the policies that you have. You know, whatever you can within that structure, whatever's possible, and that you know you're going to make them happy within that structure, that you can do. You have to be able to put your foot down and explain that there are certain things that are just too out there that we cannot do. We are here, we're listening, and we hear what you're saying, but unfortunately there's only so much, like, you know, that we are going to be able to do. I think I'm still a little bit like, no matter how open like the workplace like becomes with bright like innovative idea, I still have that a little bit of myself that sees when I started working, like, you know, the respect for the workplace, like you need to be dressed like in a certain way. Some people might call it conservative, and perhaps I'm still a bit like that. But for me, like, you know, going to work, it's still, you know, you still have to, there is certain norms that you still have to respect.
You can't just wear flip-flops, you know, to go to a client meeting.
Exactly.
It's still, you know,
it's still a place of work.
Yes, it's still
exactly.
You need to keep it professional.
Yeah.
But what about working from home? Okay, that's been obviously a major thing since the pandemic.
Yeah.
And a lot of companies are still doing it, practicing it. I know you said that for Accenture, you didn't see the drop in productivity during the pandemic.
Yeah.
But for a lot of people, I feel that there is a certain abuse. You know, there is probably a small proportion of the employees that would abuse the system. And they would see this as a way of like, well, I'm just going to work from home, but I'm going to combine it with a trip to the beach. And, you know, while my family is like, you know, in the water or whatever, I can just look at my phone, make a few calls or whatever and pretend that I'm working. Do you get any of that?
We do. And we, you know, there are, we get complaints like from people leads that say, well, this person is being like nowhere and not accountable for like, you know, for the whole day, and we don't know where they are. So, and normally you can monitor like with the status, like, you know, whether they're active or they're not, and you don't know where they are. Like, and I think again, it comes down to the employee, like how truthful, how much respect you show for your workplace, like how much do you value where you're working and the role that you're bringing. If you have that, then you're going to be okay. You're going to be that person that wherever we give you like, you know, work, you're still going to be able to deliver. But you're always going to have that proportion of people that, you know, that are going to abuse of the system. And it's not like limited to being at home. They would even do it from the office. Like, you know, they'd be like in front of the blank screen and, you know, playing cards. Or as soon as, you know, the people lead comes and then you change the page. We've had, unfortunately, to dismiss a few employees who were abusing of the system. And it's unfortunate that, you know, they don't realize that this is their bread and butter, and that, you know, they're doing that job because they like it or they love it. And I don't think that everybody like, you know, thinks like us and puts like a lot of value on their job. So, and there is only so much that you can do. You can take like disciplinary action, like if you know that they've actually done that. But it's always hard to prove, like as well, because they might, you know, then you get like in unnecessary fights, like with employees, and we don't like, you know, going down that path. We always try like to find a mutual like understanding. But it really like So I'll say it again. It boils down to the value that you put to your role and how much you think that you're bringing back to the firm. But yeah, we've heard like some funny stories about people like running like, you know, baking like stores like out of their homes while they're doing
they're doing two jobs.
They're doing two jobs in one.
Side.
And
line managers sometimes conflict or become the source of unhappiness for their staff.
Yes.
And in fact, there's a theory that says that people do not leave jobs because of the jobs, but they leave jobs because of their line managers, and they feel sometimes compelled to keep it inside because if they fear voicing it out because they could be victimized. You know, it could be, oh, my manager will kick me out of the team, or will start ignoring me, or make life hell for me. So I'll just keep it inside.
Yeah.
Have you encountered that? Have you seen that? And how do you encourage those people to actually reconcile with their line managers?
You know, it's very cultural in Mauritius. It all comes back to that we grow up like not telling the entire truth about what we see. A simple example would be you go to a restaurant, you do not like the meal. Very few of us will actually get up and say, hey, we did not like it. What you will do is you'll say, yes, 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 we did like it, but you will never come back. So which means that the restaurant will never get the feedback, and then they'll end up closing. And it is the same in the workplace. You have a problem with the people lead. You know that there is an actual problem, but it's not in your DNA to get up and voice out. So we encourage our employees to voice out, and we encourage them to do it somehow, sometimes in an anonymous way, because they do not want to feel retaliation. They're scared of having retaliation. And as much as we can, we keep on coaching those people leads, as they grow up the ladder and get into middle management where they're going to be able to manage employees. We need to provide them with that training to be able to understand their resources and really listen to what these people have to say. And we are always learning about ourselves. Nobody's perfect. I'm sure, I've had people leave because of me. So, and I always say that, whatever I've done wrong, I will learn from those mistakes. And often it is perception as well. So you see your line manager talking to a few people more than they do to you, and suddenly you think there's preference for these people, and you start complaining about favoritism, but it's perhaps not that. And if you took the time to have the conversation, and again, it's the give and take, the people managers, as much as they will give you, you need to give back to them. But if you really feel that there is somebody who is in the wrong role, so you are in a leader role, but you're not doing well, and a lot of people feel that way, the best thing that you can do is actually voice out. And obviously, for the size that we are, we have a HR partner team. So we expect that those people can either drop an email or, have a quick conversation with us. We're not going to be able to solve everything. I'm not telling you we are, the perfect workplace. We have a lot of issues, but we work through them, and we work through them in a transparent way where people understand what actions we are bringing through. We do it for different campaigns, we have a conduct count campaign, which allows people to understand, how to behave whilst you're in the workplace, show a code of conduct, and have respect, for the individual, people around you. We do it for the training sessions that we have, and we empower those people leads to say, what are you doing right or wrong? We offer soft skills training to say, this is what you need to correct about yourselves. And we put, again, a lot of focus on their strengths, because what they're probably not using right within themselves, because some people might be high achievers, and for them it's success needs to be tomorrow, and they push their team to be able to do that. And then obviously, not everyone can follow at the same pace. So you need to be able to appreciate that you have different people with different strengths within your team, and again that culture factor, where they've come from, and then educate them to be able to do better. You're never going to have the perfect manager, but all you can do is empower them to do better.
Yeah, and I think it's about the culture. And for us, I always say to our staff, if they have an issue with their line manager, sometimes, let's say the manager in the heat of the moment has said something, or whether it's, because parents are there, clients are there, or whatever. If they wait for the right moment and say, hey, I would like to have a coffee with you, and I encourage them to have coffees one-to-one with their managers, and then actually say, you know what, this is how I felt when you said that, and not in an argumentative way, confrontational, I hate it when you do this or whatever, but just opening up about, this is how I felt.
Yeah.
And do you think that next time, maybe if you wanted to say this, you could, say it in a different way or whatever, because I feel I'm a bit sensitive about that. And most of the time, the managers will be like, oh, I didn't realize that this is how you felt.
And the people who find themselves in the manager roles, they probably have only a couple of experience more than the ones who are reporting into them. So they're still learning along the way.
Totally.
And that same person that you've talked about, had he or she not had the conversation with the manager, that is your unhappy person going home right there, because they've had a bad day at work and they've gone home and they take it out, in their household. And if it's not that, if it happens a couple of times, then that's where you get a resignation letter, because something that could have been solved right there and then, they didn't take the time to do it.
Or you get the
So-
labor officer,
Exactly.
or you get a
Yeah,
court
yeah,
paper,
yeah, yeah.
or whatever.
Yes,
It's like,
yes,
well,
yes.
if we had known about this,
you
it would
would
have been resolved.
yeah. And again, it all comes down to the communication and being transparent and having open forums where people can feel that they can do it. We have HR open doors where we encourage people to come and have a chat to us. And sometimes you just sit in there and nobody comes. And then you're like, oh, this is surprising, because you think there are so many issues. And then there'll be weeks where you'll get so many people who come in like for basic questions, but they just want someone to listen to them and tell them, what to do next and guide them. Yeah.
Would you be able to share with us a little bit more about career counselling and EVP, mentoring, that kind of thing?
Yes. So look, I think career counseling is extremely important for employees to stay happy at work, because again, I'm looking at where like most of our employees like come from. So the majority of our employees will come from high schools in Mauritius or from the University of Mauritius, and all they've done like in our education system, in most schools, like I'm not talking about your school, but perhaps like the more like government like structure, all they've done is really learn, and to be able to unlearn the way that they've actually learned throughout the years and then come into a workplace is always a difficult transition. Some people have done an engineering degree, if I may pick that one, and they don't even know why they picked that degree. It was available, somebody told them that it pays well, that they'll get a job at the end of the day, and they basically decided to be a computer engineer. So then they start working with us, and 1-2 years into working, they realize that this is not what they want to do, or there is a part of perhaps the engineering component that they don't like, whether it's a functional role or it's a coding role. And you need to be able to sit down with them and understand like where they're coming from. And we put a lot of value on the strengths of our employees, so that then you can take what matches them both to ensure that it's bringing out the best of them. So our people leads sit down with the employees, and we do it throughout the year. So it's not specifically, when you've got to have like your performance achievement or you're going to get your end of your bonus that the conversation happen. We put a lot of emphasis on what we call meaningful conversations, where you really sit down and you're not looking at your employee as the direct report, but you're looking at that person as somebody who's building a career, and you guide and you teach and you mentor and you make sure that you're following like where the person is going. Apart from then having like, the career counseling, you also have mentors that can be in different parts of the world, where you can have a quick chat just to say, hey, this is where I'm at. I don't know what I'm going to be doing next, and I'd like a bit of guidance. And internally, because we've all been through that, then we are able to sit down and talk to these employees. And it's not limited to the HR team, because a lot of people think that, that's the job of HR. Like you need to be like sitting down, and it's not. We work side by side as business partners with the business to educate them, to empower them, so that they can have the same type of conversation with their employees then, to understand like, how we bring out the best of our employees in the long term that they're going to be working with us. And yes, we do put a lot of emphasis on mental health. I think it's really taboo still in Mauritius, and people don't talk about it. And if you feel unwell, very, very often, you'll be either ashamed, like to talk about it, or you'll keep it like, to yourself, and then it ends up like in, we've seen in very rare cases, but exceptionally like in suicides, because they haven't found like the right place to be able to come and explain like what they are going through. And I'd probably not be honest myself if I didn't say that, you can imagine like 4,000 employees, like the constant like running ins and outs, like what it entails for my job, like, to do. I've got 2 children, I need to be with them, husband, house and everything. And I reach a point where I'm tired. And I need to be able to openly say that and acknowledge the fact that, even if I think I'm Superwoman, I am not, and that I get tired and that I need to take a break. And I'm glad that I work for a firm where they understand that, where I can sit down and say, I need to stop right now because I cannot keep on going. I need a break, I need to breathe, and you have the support system to be able to do that. So we have an employee assistance program. It's a completely confidential phone line that employees can call and say, you know, I'm having such and such issues. You have a psychologist online that's actually helping to say, let's talk through this, whether it's a bit of meditation. And if need be, you can then be directed to a local psychologist in Mauritius to have that follow-up to say, let's get you through this. So I think acknowledging that makes you a solid, better balanced workplace. Yeah.
Well, I also think you are Superwoman.
Oh, thank you.
On Saturdays, you take your son to football, and you know you put on the best
Yes.
parties for your kids' birthdays and stuff like that. So you're pretty amazing.
Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you so much for being here today and talking to us and our listeners. I'm sure we've all benefited from the advice that you've given and the stories that you've shared.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's been a happy moment.
Yeah,
So
it's been
yeah,
wonderful.
and good luck with the rest of it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.